great to be here. It's always wonderful to do events that stop the war, and I think this is perhaps one of the most important that I've done with this, so I'm really grateful to be here. The economic impact of war, the economic impact of the defense industry, of the arms trade, isn't just about the extraordinary human costs in the sites of conflict where that weaponry is used. It isn't just about jobs. It's about the priorities in our own societies. It's about what it is doing to our economy and to the economies of those countries we trade weapons with. But let's start for a moment with jobs. We often perceive the defense sector as a crucial job creator. And of course, it does create jobs. But a number of studies that we've documented in a book called Indefensible, 7 Myths That Sustain the Global Arms Trade, which you can read for free online at projectindefensible.org. These studies show that the defense sector is one of the least productive and most expensive economic sectors for job creation. And why is that? Because there is an enormous amount of public investment in each of these jobs. These are perhaps the most subsidized industries on the planet. So for the public cost of every job in the defense sector, we could create, according to these 3 surveys that we've looked at, between 3 and 7 equivalent level jobs in more socially and economically productive sectors for the same cost to the public purse. It's incredibly important to note that the sorts of sectors in which the skills used in the defense sector, and are very important obviously in the defense sector, are very similar skills that would be incredibly productive in renewables, green transport, manufacture of large-scale health equipment, and many others. The defense sector used to be at the technological cutting edge. The defense sector used to have important and productive economic linkages to other parts of the productive economy. That is no longer the case. Technology in the defense sector is driven primarily by the big tech giants, wherever in the world they might be located. And that is then sold on to the defense sector. But of course, there's another fundamental economic impact that doesn't get spoken about nearly enough. And that is the economic opportunity cost of this public investment in the defense sector. Let's look at one obvious example. At the onset of the COVID pandemic, when our health workers did not have sufficient gloves and masks, let alone the numbers of respirators and other equipment that we needed, Boris Johnson's then government, and it is difficult to keep up with exactly who runs the government at any point in time in this country, Boris Johnson's government decided to increase defense spending by £17 billion at that moment. My own Member of Parliament, Keir Starmer, leader of the incredibly misnamed Labour Party, suggested that that increase was insufficient. Now, not only does excessive spending in the defense sector inhibit gross domestic product, but there is a massive cost to the taxpayer. Where do you think the subsidies to defense companies come from? Well, it could be the magic money tree. But given that the only people who discovered the magic money tree seem to be billionaires, it's important to bear in mind that it comes from you and I, the taxpayer. Every pound spent on R&D subsidies, on employment subsidies, on the massive marketing costs of British weapons around the world comes from you and I. I don't remember being asked about that. There are also, to add to this, the massive costs, again to you and I, of corruption in the defense trade. The trade in arms accounts for 40% of all corruption in all world trade. 40%. So when the world's most corrupt company, BAE Systems, pays £6 billion of bribes to members of the Saudi royal family, which they did in the Al Yamama arms deal, some of those bribes come back to the executives at BAE Systems, to politicians, to political parties, to military and intelligence leaders. That's what this book documents, with almost 3,000 footnotes if you're interested in looking at the corruption in the trade. But it's not only the British economy that is affected, and affected in devastating ways that we simply can no longer afford. I'm from South Africa. I'm no longer a South African member of Parliament because I was kicked out of Parliament by my own party. You think here Starmer had a look at that? Because I tried to investigate a hugely corrupt arms deal done with, amongst others, BAE Systems. According to the Metropolitan Police, £115 million of bribes were paid on that deal to our senior politicians, senior officials, military leaders, and executives of our state arms company. It is estimated that that arms deal for weapons that we never needed and have barely used inhibited South Africa's GDP by between 0.7 and 1.3% every year in the 20 years that we were paying off those arms. This is a country with an unemployment rate of somewhere between 30 and 50%. This is a country whose President Thabo Mbeki stated, when we were throwing billions of pounds at BAE Systems and others, that we couldn't afford to provide antiretroviral medication for the 6 million South Africans living with HIV or AIDS, resulting in 365,000 deaths over the following 5 years, and the birth of 32,000 babies born HIV positive, because we couldn't afford mother-to-child transmission treatment, but we could afford $350 million of bribes on $10 billion of weapons that don't make us safer. So the future of the defense sector in this economy and in the global economy is, in my opinion, in the area of diversification, using the skills that we have for more socially and economically productive activities.